What's up, Navigating Academia family? This is your buddy and personal academic mentor, Dr. Phoenix Singh, coming at you to be able to discuss one of my favorite side hustles in terms of creating quite a substantial amount of incremental income if you are currently a faculty member. Now, I started doing this back when I was a postdoctoral fellow, so you can do it even when you're very young. The first time that I ever had the opportunity to do what I'm about to tell you about right now, I think I was 23 or 24 years old. I had just finished my first doctorate, and it was one of these situations where I remember first hearing about it and was like, I could do that? And in actuality, it's something that's become quite a prosperous thing for me to do, and this is providing trainings. Now, I'm not talking here about online trainings, certainly not on-demand trainings, like the type that you would learn to do if you end up becoming a member of Publication Academy, and we walk you step by step on how to be able to actually build out your marketing materials, build out your trainer bio, build out your marketing, everything, if you join that. And you can do that at publicationacademy.com. But really what I want to talk to you about today is how to give in-person workshops. Now, when I talk about giving trainings, I always say that for any training topic, you need 4 versions of that training. You need a 45-minute and an hour-and-a-half version. I also want you to build out a 4-hour version and an 8-hour version. Now, these are things that are quite substantial in terms of the amount of work that it takes to be able to generate this amount of content. So this is not something where you would do it over a weekend. This is something where you do it over the course of maybe even 1 to 2 months. Whenever you have free time in your schedule. I know that everybody's insanely busy. The good news, though, is that if you kind of pick the right topic, and this could be a topic that's really hot right now, so for example, artificial intelligence used in academia, could also be something that's cyclical, so it'll kind of always be of interest, something like ethics, for example, or addressing implicit bias. These are things that are always going to be popular no matter what happens. At certain times, maybe there'll be some incident that occurred that ends up making it much more popular or less, but it'll always be something that's a mainstay, versus other things that are really hot in a given moment. These things can wax and wane themselves, but usually it's a lot more volatile in terms of interest levels. So my recommendation is always to be able to try to identify something that's non-cyclical, that's always consistently there. But obviously you need to figure out, after you've built out the materials, who actually wants something like this. It is true that it's always best to be able to get a contract first, to be able to present something and then actually build it out, because this way at least you know that some money's going to be coming in. That said, that can be super duper tough insofar as sometimes people are going to ask you for learning objectives and a trainer biography. They're going to be asking you for sometimes quiz questions or a certificate they can pass out. They're going to be asking you for things like previous trainee evaluations. These are things that you may not have. So in that case, it may be something where you need to build something out first, or even actually deliver it yourself, for free at a local university, let's say, to be able to get some of those evaluations already that you can bring to bear. But usually financially it ends up being worth it. Now, there's some folks who I think are out of their minds who think that, you shouldn't take a speaking engagement for less than, the number that gets thrown around is $3,500. I think that's a blessing if you can end up doing that. And when I say a speaking engagement, I'm talking about something like a keynote. Have I done keynotes for $3,500? Of course I have, right? Have I done them for much, much more? Yeah, I absolutely have, which is a blessing. But I think it's not the most humble thing, shall we say, to go on to social media and brag about earnings from things, especially giving specific dollar amounts, and particularly not trying to specifically help other people to be able to do that. So my goal is to be able to try to assist you step by step in knowing how to do it. So what my recommendation is to be able to literally hop online, and whatever type of an association or associations would be relevant for you, what I want you to do is to be able, especially if you're a member of one, because then, member services, I want you to try to get in touch with whoever kind of either routinely provides pre-conference workshops or is even an organizer of pre-conference workshops. If they're the organizer, you've got the right person. If you can't figure out who that is, who would be kind of the correct decision maker or touch point, figure out who in the past has given these pre-conference workshops, get in touch with them and ask them, say you're really passionate, you built out this training, you want to submit it for consideration, and is there any way that might be possible? The good news about pre-conference workshops is you usually get to go to the conference for free, which is nice, and usually get a nice little honorarium honorarium for being able to give it. Gives you a lot of good practice. You should never expect that if you have no training experience whatsoever, especially if you were somebody who is, very junior like I was back when I did my initial ones, that, just because you've got a faculty position that all of a sudden now you command this, this massive amount of money. It's just not true. That would be nice. That's kind of like Instagram famous and these sorts of things, in so far as people on Instagram always saying, I make 6 figures and I can teach you how to do it too, and these sorts of things. So this is much more practical, right? And practical is the name of the game. It's not as sexy, but it's one of these things where it's going to get you where you need to go, okay? So my recommendation is that you kind of get in touch with those folks first, and that's, certainly one avenue. Another avenue that I like to use is if your training is relevant to, let's say, a specific government agency, like I'm in the United States, so obviously every state has their own Department of Education, their own Department of Corrections, I'm a forensic psychologist, and so forth. Figuring out who the individuals are who are the training directors for those different agencies, because usually there are some. And even if it's something where you're not necessarily a content expert insofar as you are a methodological expert, usually a lot of these agencies also have research departments. And it may be something obviously where the nature of the work that you do, the research and the methodological work, is really quite basic, as it were. So if you're doing like linear regression and stuff like this, like, okay, the people who work in a research department, they're going to know about that, right? But if it's something where you're really doing stuff like, structural equation modeling or hierarchical linear modeling, or, these sorts of things, then it may be a more in-demand skill set. And so maybe you can, propose a training that would be more practical and methodological in nature. Whatever it happens to be, reach out to them, schedule a 30-minute, Zoom call or phone call, have that conversation, make that personal connection. If it's a conference-based thing, maybe you can meet that training organizer for the pre-conference workshops at the next conference before you want to actually make your pitch, and build that personal relationship is very, very important to be able to build that rapport. And then simply continuing to have those conversations, like with these folks, stay in touch with them. Even if there's no opportunity at that moment, I would say once every 6 months to once a year, reaching back out to them, saying maybe you've built out some new training materials on some new topics, whatever it happens to be. Over the years, I know you won't be able to see it, right? So like these are all of the in-person trainings that I give, right? Some of them, do I do them on Zoom or remotely as well? Oh yeah, definitely. But I really prefer to be able to do them in person. And live webinars are definitely the way to go, I would say, as opposed to kind of, other kinds of online opportunities. Make sure, whatever, that you've got, a really, come on, look at that headshot. Look at this guy, right? It's just so makes me roll my eyes, right? But it's a good photo, right? So, nice professional photo of yourself, a little trainer bio and these sorts of things. It says where you can book. It says that it's full day or half day, in person or live online. It gives a name to the series. So instead of it being one workshop, it's a workshop series is how I frame it. And this has worked very, very well. It's thick cardstock, right? Very important. It makes it seem legit and fancy, right? You'll have to, drop some money on it, go to Vistaprint, one of these places, your local Home Depot, Office Depot. Don't go to Home Depot. Office Depot, get this stuff built out for yourself. I think it's a really good idea. And I want you to bring it to any in-person offerings, or if you get it graphically designed, maybe on Fiverr or Upwork or any of these, you'll find the right graphic designer for you, work with them intimately, get the thing developed, and then it can be a PDF that you can also disseminate along with your PowerPoint slide deck, the note-taking version that I recommend always disseminating. So those are my recommendations. This is a situation where you can build up your relationships over time, and never forget that your network is your net worth. This is incredibly true. In academia, it's one of these situations where there are certain things that are done in a business perspective that are frowned upon, not because they should be, but because in academia, the idea of actually, doing anything business-wise, was kind of seen as like anathema. It's seen as like a bad thing for some reason. But something like giving trainings and all does not have that impact. In fact, the fact that you give them, you can put it in your CV, create a new kind of subsection there, which is professional training or professional development opportunities and so forth. And then you can put that in there, which is never a bad thing to be able to, power up your CV. So those are my recommendations in terms of how it is that you would go about developing paid training materials and getting those opportunities. We have, I think it's about 4 to 6 hours of extremely comprehensive step-by-step guidance trained by me, who's been doing professional trainings for almost 2 decades now, very successfully financially. So if you're interested in learning literally every tip, trick, secret that I've got, Publication Academy down here is where I want you to go. All right, guys, God bless you. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for stopping by, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here as always. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more in this series on navigating academia, please click on one of these links over here to be able to view more original content. I hope to see you there.